Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Sridevi Mataji.
Hare Krishna. I'm sorry, I'm not able to put on my video, Guru Maharaj. Please excuse me for that. Dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to our Guru Parampara. I am humbly apologizing for not being able to have my video on, but please welcome to His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj's daily call. Today we are on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 12, Chapter 3, verse number 52, which is the very last one in this particular chapter. Please welcome His Holiness Candramauli Maharaj. Dear Maharaj, please take over the call.
Thank you. Today is the appearance of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. We will focus our attention on some activities and some of his glories. This will be our focus for today. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shivarshavana Devi Daite Kripab Daya Krishna Sambandha Vijnanam Daine Pravave Namaha Madur Ojvala Prema Adya Shri Rupanuga Bhakti Da Shri Goda Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Sri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pastyatya De Satarine Pachikalpatarubhischa Kripa Sindhupe Bacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha and Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, in order to understand Vaishnav culture, we have to understand a little bit about Vaishnav history. Vaishnav history is very significant because it has evolved in a certain meandering way over the years due to many interruptions created by, you might say, other sampradayas who have tried to infiltrate and destroy Vaishnavism through the process of Sahajism, cheapening the whole process, or through this smartaism given by the Brahmins, who are absorbed in making money and providing rules and regulations for the common people to follow. So the lives of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and particularly His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada have been features of destroying pretentious religion and reestablishing real Vaishnava culture, which means that culture which was established by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After Mahaprabhu left the planet in the year 1534, for another 150 years, Vaishnavism, due to his presence, continued to flourish. But gradually, as time went down, many of the Vaishnavas started to leave the planet. And what springs up, and this is the history of spiritual cultures throughout the world, is when a great personality leaves, or if the incarnation of the Lord appears and he also leaves, gradually those of the followers have to really work hard to continue to establish the teachings given by the Lord and by his pure devotees. But that becomes sometimes destroyed or not destroyed, interrupted or challenged by people who take those pure teachings and have a tendency to turn it around. But during the time of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the late 1800s, you might say in around the end of the 1800s, around the 1880s, like that, there was many groups had developed. They were called Sampradaya. Sampradaya is a lineage of Vaishnavas coming from the Supreme Lord himself. There are 4 bona fide Sampradayas, which is the Lakshmi Sampradaya, which is followed by the Ramanujas, the Brahma Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya, which are followed by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, his followers, which includes Madhvacharya's teachings. And then you have Rudra Sampradaya, which is by Vishnu Swami. This is the teachings coming from Lord Shiva, who is also Vaishnava. And of course, then you have the Nimbarka Sampradaya, which are the Chatrashushana, or the 4 Kumaras. Those 4 Sampradayas, there is no real devotion according to philosophical and practical application of these teachings. But a lot of, this is the age of Kali, and the age of Kali means the age of concoction, the age of deviation, the age of creation of your own ideas. And so these sampradayas, so-called, we call them sampradayas. They're not real sampradayas, but they are in the name of sampradayas. There was Jat Goswami, Saki Beti, Nityananda Vamsa, Gauranga Nagari, Shana, Sahajya, so many. 13 of them were prominent, but there were many lesser ones also. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur at that time was practically alone with a few Vaishnavas trying to reestablish Lord Chaitanya's teachings as the foundation for real Vaishnava culture. But there was much challenges. And he was practically all alone with a few assistants who weren't as qualified, nearly as qualified as he was. And so he prayed. He was married. He had his wife was Bhagavi Devi. He already had about 4 children. Now he prayed for a ray of Vishnu. He said, "My dear Lord, please send someone from your personal entourage to come and teach what is real Vaishnava culture and eliminate all of this pretension." Because pretension simply means cheating, and cheating means something that looks like the real thing. If you have a currency bill and it's not the real thing, although it looks like the real thing, it can't buy anything. So in the name of, this goes on in so many areas of life, that there are a lot of imitations of the reality in order to take advantage of that reality and make a profit of it. And so he prayed, and then one day, his wife, she gave birth to a baby boy. This was on February 6th, 1874 at 3:30 in the afternoon. And a beautiful boy was there. And his birth was quite extraordinary. The umbilical cord, which connects the mother to the child, was wrapped around the baby as a Brahmin thread, just like those who wear Brahmin threads, and they wear it in a certain way over their left shoulder, hanging down over their right side. So his umbilical cord was just like a Brahmin thread. This was an indication from Krishna that here is what you had prayed for. But that indication wasn't clear at that time. At that time, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was living in Jagannath Puri. He was also doing some work in the Jagannath temple to help reestablish the the offerings of Lord Jagannath, to bring everything back to the standard offering times. And so he had some influence in the Jagannath temple. So he was living on Grand Road, which is that road by which Jagannath performs his pastimes of Ratha Yatra. You can still go there, and the house is still there, and there is also a temple there. And so Bhakti Siddhanta, who at that time when he was born was called Bimala, Bimala Prasad. That was his birth name when he was born. He was the fifth child of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And he named the child Bimala. Bimala is a deity that before Jagannath gets his offerings, Bimala, the offerings that go to Jagannath are first given to Bimala, and then Bimala, and then after the offerings are taken to Lord Jagannath. This deity is more like a manifestation of the female energy of Jagannath. So that was his name given. At one point, Bhakti Vinod Thakur had to leave Jagannath Puri for other business, and that was around the same time of the Ratha Yatra festival. So during that Ratha Yatra festival, the cart of Jagannath, huge cart, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra Maharani, very big deities. They're about 1.5 meters high, very huge and very wide, about 1 meter wide. They are moving along Grand Road on the Rath cart. And occasionally the cart would stop at different places. This particular Ratha Yatra, the cart stopped right in front of Bhakti Vinod Thakur's home. His wife, seeing that the cart had stopped right in front of her home, she took the little child, Bimala, of Lord Jagannath. The pujaris had allowed her to come onto the cart. She placed the baby right at the feet of Jagannath, and the baby sat there. And then at one point, Jagannath dropped his huge garland, and it's encircled little Bimala. And so he was like in the middle, and the garland had encircled him around. Later, when her husband, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, had returned, she informed him of what happened. Then he could understand by his intuition that this is the person he had prayed for. And so he understood, my prayer has been answered in the form of my own son. And so, and of course, little Bimala grew up very quickly. He was a very devout little boy, even in a very young age. His father would offer various types of bhoga, his mother, to the deities, their personal deities at the home. And one day there were some mangoes that were to be offered to the deity, and little Bimala, he took one mango and ate it. And this is for a 4-year-old boy, this is not so serious. But his father wanted to instruct him and said, what you have done is not so good. This is meant to be offered to the deity. You can have after the deity is offered. So he mildly, not chastised him, but instructed him in that way. But the boy was feeling so bad that he had done some offense to the deity. And so at that time, he made a vow. This was at 4 years old, that in my whole life, I will never eat a mango. And for those of you who don't live in India, you can't understand the gravity of this vow, because in mango season, which usually begins around May, there are profuse mangoes everywhere, and people buy mangoes, make mango chutney, mango drinks, mangoes, and use it for subjis, they use it for everything. It's very much popular, especially in Bengal around the month of May. And at different times throughout his life, people and his disciples would also come and offer him a mango. And he would say, oh, I'm sorry, I cannot touch, I am an offender. So in his whole life, he kept that vow of never taking a mango. Amazing for a 4-year-old child to keep a vow his whole life. As he grew up, when he was 7 years old, he had already learned the entire Bhagavad Gita. And he was also able at the age of 7 to speak the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita on any of the verses in Bhagavad Gita. His father could see he was such a bright child. And then at the age of, I think he was 9 years old, he engaged him in chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and he also gave him a deity of Kormadev. And now Kormadev is the manifestation of Krishna, who is in the form of a tortoise. And that goes back to the churning of the milk ocean, when the Lord appeared as a tortoise, as a pivot stable for the churning rod. And so those who worship Kormadev, they usually worship Kormadev in order to get stability in the practice of devotional service. So this is also recommended for all Vaishnavas. If you want stability in your devotional service, then it's mentioned that you can pray to Kormadev for such features. So he had a deity of Kormadev, and he was also chanting the Maha Mantra. As he became older, when he was 11 years old, he was going to school and reading all of the books in the library. Although he was only still a young boy, he had such a memory that he could remember everything he read. At the age of 11, he created one particular type of shorthand. There are different ways to take shorthand, and he created his own style, which was called Bikanto, and that was adopted by many after that. As he grew up in going to school, he was an exceptional person. He wouldn't even read the books of the classes, but he would always be the best student in the class. He would spend most of the time in the libraries reading all the books in the libraries. And it was understood that he was Shrutidara. Shrutidara means one who can remember everything they hear or read. So he had developed that quality that everything he read, everything he heard, he could memorize. And anytime recall was needed, he could quote according to the situation. He was such an outstanding student in school, and that even some of when he entered into university, many of the university professors and the administration could see that once this boy graduates, he will be a gem for our university. So they offered him a particular chair, position, and so much remunerations, but he rejected it all, thinking, if I become very popular, if I become very much known, and then they will give me more and more responsibilities, and then I will have to enter into Grihastha life. And so he very much avoided all of their entries. And then while he was also going to school, he also created one particular assembly. He called it the August Assembly. It was a group of dedicated persons in Vaishnav culture who wanted to make Vaishnav practice their whole life and stay within the ashram of brahmacharya, or celibate student. So he established that club, but unfortunately he was the only one who stayed in the club, as the club was affected by time. Many of the persons who came, they also left. So he kept that throughout his life. Yeah. He was an exemplary student. And his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, also noted in the in the year around the end of when he was in the age of 20, many of the professors in the school asked him to write some treatise about astrology. So he wrote one treatise establishing astrological teachings called Siddhanta Saras. I think it was called, what was it called? Siddhanta, Jyoti Siddhanta. I don't remember the exact name of the treatise, but it was recognized and established as a book of teachings on astrology that could be referred to in a very authoritative way. So he was brilliant in all areas of education. And of course, we was working very much under the care of his father at that time. During that time, just at the late 1990s, the late 1890s, one particular Babaji, name was Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. He had come from Vrindavan, and he connected with Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He used to go to listen to Bhakti Vinod Thakur's lectures. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he was wearing one particular hat made out of a tiger. He had a tiger skin hat. So he would wear that when he would come to the lectures. And he also would carry a basket full of various items that he got from Vrindavan. So when he would see, at that time, Bimala Prasad, little Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he wasn't little at the age. At that time, he was in his 20s. He was amazed to see the intelligence of this boy, so he gifted him with his hat and with a rope, which had many knots he got from Vrindavan, which a tilak marking, which had the names of Krishna on it, and various other items. He was impressed. And at one point, Bhakti Vinod Thakur could see that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, or his son, Nimala Prasad at this time, he was very much inclined to this sadhu, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So he said, of course, no one can understand the process of bhakti, and no one can complete the process of bhakti unless they take shelter of Krishna in the form of his spiritual master. Tad vigyatam gurum eva abhigatsche. One must take a shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, work under his guidance, very carefully execute his instructions, and that way one can make tangible and regular progress back home, back to Godhead. It is the third stage of the stages of bhakti, adaushara sadhu sangha bhajana kriya. Bhajana kriya means to take initiation from Krishna's representative, the pure spiritual master, and execute the process under his guidance. And therefore, Bhakti Vinod Thakur very strongly emphasized, I think, that you should take initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. So he approached Gaur Kishore Das Babaji and he asked for initiation. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji said, "My dear son, I'm sorry, but I don't have any disciples and I don't plan to have any disciples, so please don't ask." He went back to his father explaining what happened. His father said, "No, you must be persistent. Try to convince him to accept you." So he went back again, and this time in a very emotional way with tears in his eyes. He said, "I have fixed my mind upon you. You are my spiritual master. Please give me shelter." Gaur Kishore Das Babaji said, "Well, I have to ask Lord Chaitanya. If Lord Chaitanya gives the permission, then your desire will be fulfilled. Come back the next day." So he came back the next day. We saw Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. He asked him, "Did you see Lord Chaitanya?" "Yes." "Did you speak with him?" "Yes." "What did he say?" He said, "I forgot to ask him about you." "But don't worry, I will see him again tomorrow. So you come back again." So the next day he came back, and again he fell at the feet of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, hoping that he would accept him. And he asked him again, "Did Lord Chaitanya give permission?" he said, well, I asked him and he didn't respond at all. He didn't give any answer. So then little Bhakti Siddhanta Bimala Prasad was devastated at heart. And he was very emotional. He started to wander away in a very tearful mood, not knowing what to do. He was walking across one bridge and he was seeing the bridge and he was thinking, without having a spiritual master, one cannot achieve the goal of life of love of Krishna. And without achieving that goal, there's no purpose to human life. So therefore, I cannot receive that mercy, so I should end my life. So he was thinking of jumping off this bridge. Just at that time, Gorky Shordas Babaji came walking from the opposite direction. He said, and he came up to Bimala Prasad and he said, I was just testing you just to see how sincere you were. I will give you initiation. So in the year 1900, he initiated him and gave him the name Sri Varshabhanabi Devi Daitaya, which is a name for Srimati Radharani. Now he had become initiated. He had found his spiritual master. Then he started to execute the process in a very severe way. Living in the area of Bhaktivinoda Thakur was living in the area of Navadvip. In that area, he was living in a place called Godramdvip, one of the 9 islands of Navadvip. And so Bhakti Siddhanta started to try to perform some austerities because he understood to be a Vaishnava and to develop proper understanding, one should chant the holy names of the Lord. So in the same mood of Srila Haridas Thakur, he decided to make a vow. And his vow was to chant 1 billion names of the Supreme Lord. And so he went to the area of Navadvip. He established a little bhajan kutir there, it's still there. And he started to chant. And he was chanting, and he was chanting 3 lakhs of names every day, which is 192 rounds, following in the footsteps of Srila Haridas Thakur. At that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and others, they came and they offered him another place to stay, which was right in the area of the yoga pit where Lord Chaitanya had appeared. So he moved his residence there. And that time he continued to chant. And for 9 years, 9 full years, he maintained that vow of chanting every day, 192 rounds. And he would sleep on the ground, no matter what time of year it was. And he had a little hut, and then they also had a tin roof. And you could see a picture. There's a picture of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati chanting japa with one hand and holding an umbrella in another hand during the rainy season when it would rain. The roof would sometimes leak and the water would come in. And so he would keep an umbrella over his head and continue his japa. For his eating, he would cook a little khichdi every day. And then he would, in the mood of Chaturmasya, he would put the khichdi on the ground and he would put his hands behind his back. This is one of the austerities that you perform in Chaturmasya. Those who follow Chaturmasya strictly, they put their hands behind their back and then they have some prasadam on the ground and then they go down with their head going down and they eat only with their mouth, don't touch the food. And at the same time, whenever they come up, that is all they would get for that day. So he would do that. He would eat once a day, whatever he could take on that, and then continue his chanting. So in that austerity, and at the end of 9 years, he completed his vow of 1 billion rounds. Around that same time, there was one Babaji who was very inclined to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. His name is Radha Raman Charana Babaji. He was living in Jagannath Puri. He had some followers. So he came to see Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He would listen to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but he was somewhat of a speculator. So he had created these different mantras. And one of the mantras he created was, let's see, what's that mantra? Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna, Radha Krishna, Jai Shri Krishna, Nitai Gaur, Radhe Shyam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. Now he's mixing two things that don't mix. Nitai Gaur, Radhe Shyam, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati could understand this. He's creating bogus mantras. So he took issue with him. There was a big debate. And of course, Radharaman Das Babaji Maharaj didn't change his bogus mantras, but he was challenged by Bhaktisiddhanta, where he had to leave Navadvip. Prabhupada talks about this, and Prabhupada took that same mantra and gave us the Vaishnav version of that same mantra. Instead of saying Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, he said Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Jai Krishna Balaram. So Prabhupada said we can chant it like that, Jai Krishna Balaram. And then it's not rasa basa, it comes within the mellows of acceptable Vaishnav literature. In the year 1911, of course, the controversy with the Asampradayas and especially with the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas, the Brahmin culture was very strong at that time. And the Brahmanas were taking over the leads within the society. And they were saying, if you're born in a Brahmin family, and then you're a Brahmin, you cannot wear a Brahmin thread unless you're born in a Brahmin family. And they were also saying that if you commit some sinful activities, we will do pujas for you. And you'll get relief from the sinful activities, but you must pay us some money for these pujas. And so they were making a business on the so-called trying to relieve people's sinful reactions. And so a lot of this cheating was going on, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur was becoming very much disturbed. And he was the leader of the Vaishnavas at the time. And so the Vaishnavas were getting disturbed by all of these smarta Brahmins who were making profit on religious principles, and also saying, if you're not born in a Brahmin family, you're not a Brahmin. And Prabhupada also talks about that, how the Brahmins actually ruined the Vaishnava culture by getting into this idea of caste system. The word caste is a perverted version of the actual Varnashram system, Chaturvarnamaya Srishta Guna Karma Vibhaga Saha. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, 4 types of people created by me. The Brahmins, the Vaishyas, the Kshatriyas, the Sudras. These 4 are the social body of the society, of the world, actually. These 4 characteristics are found throughout the world. And it's not by birth, but it's by qualification. So according to one's qualification, based on the education and training one receives, one can perform a particular activity. And if one is expert in that activity, they should be designated by that activity and not by the birth. So even if one is born in a Sudra family, if they are exhibiting the qualities of a Brahmin, the activities of a Brahmin, they should be seen as a Brahmin. And this is how Prabhupada spread the Krishna consciousness movement in the West. He went to the Western countries where people are born below the Varnashram system, Malechas, Yavanas, low-class people who eat meat, kill cows, and perform all sinful activities. They're not even following any of the 4 Varnas. But Prabhupada understood, according to the teachings, Narada Muni's teachings, that by training and education, we can create the Brahminical culture and therefore bring people up to the highest standard. And then engage them in devotional service. And that is called Daivi Varnashram, or spiritual Varnashram, working according to one's material tendencies and serving the Lord with those tendencies. And so those who are born in a particular family doesn't mean you're relegated to that particular Varna. So this was the big contention, but the Brahmins were strong and they had a lot of support. And so this became a heated debate after a while, and then they decided to settle it in a public forum to decide who is superior. Is it Vaishnavas or is it the Brahmanas? And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the only person who could actually defeat these rascals. And he was qualified. But when the time came for the actual debate, it was to be held in a place called Midnapur. It was on September 9, 10, and 11 in the year 2000. I'm sorry, in the year 1911. And he was scheduled to speak. But he came down with a very bad case of rheumatic fever, and he couldn't travel. And so he wasn't available to go. And now the Brahmins were without, the Vaishnavas were without any leader. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur started to pray to the Lord, is there anyone who can come and establish what is real Vaishnava, what is real Brahminical culture? But then his son, at that time, his name was Sri Varshabhanavi Devi, he had written one paper called Brahmins and Vaishnavas. What is a Brahmin, what is a Vaishnava, and what is the relationship between the two? He gave it to his father. His father read it and said, this is amazing. You should go on behalf of the Vaishnavas. So he did. And then he appeared. Now he was a new person. Nobody was familiar with him in terms of his scholastic ability and his position in society. So they came, and then the Brahmins came, and then there was a debate. It was meant to last for 3 days. So the Brahmins would speak, and then after they'd speak, then when Bhakti Siddhanta at that time, of course, he was Sri Varshabhanavi Devi, he was asked to speak. So he got up and he started to quote Shastra, and he was quoting Shastra, encouraging the Brahmins in their arguments, saying if you're born in a Brahmin family, that means your birth is the highest in society, therefore you're the most qualified. In other words, you're the leader of society. And so the Brahmins were listening, and they were feeling quite pleased and delighted that, oh, he is the leader of our opposition, but he is supporting our arguments. This went on for some time, but then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati started to change the mood of his argument. But then he said, but even if you're born in a Brahmin family, if you are not of a Vaishnava, you cannot even save yourself, what to speak about saving others. And birth is not the qualification of one's Varna, it is qualification. In other words, one has to show the qualities. And therefore, he quoted many verses from the Shastras, illustrating the point that it is not by janma, but it's by karma that one is understood to be of a particular Varna and particular Brahmana. And the crowd at that time, many that were innocent people who had come to hear, they were amazed to hear him, and they were applauding his lectures. And the Brahmanas were starting to feel unhappy. And then at the end of the 3 days, he gave a 2-hour summation of everything he had said, and the Brahmanas could not counteract it. Everybody was cheering him. The Brahmins just turned around and left. Obviously, the Vaishnavas had won. It was a great victory. And people were, in general, were very pleased to meet such a great scholar of the Vedas. So they all wanted to touch his feet. Of course, in India, if you go to India, if you have some position, people want to touch your feet. And then So there was hundreds of people there, maybe even more, who wanted to touch his feet. But there were police and there were others who were organizing the program, so they stopped the crowds. But they wanted to please everyone because the crowd really wanted to get the mercy of Bhaktisiddhanta. So they took his feet and pushed it in a bucket of water and then threw all the water on the crowd, and everybody was satisfied in that way. So you can see from his early age how he was already defeating some of the pretentious Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. One time, one Babaji, he was I can't remember who he was. He was a respectable Babaji, but he was an impersonalist. And he came to see Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And Bhakti Vinod Thakur greeted him in a very honest and very gentlemanly way. But Bhaktisiddhanta was there, and he didn't even look at this Babaji. And so the Babaji said to Bhakti Vinod, "Your son, he doesn't even look at me. He doesn't even talk to me. Something wrong?" He's Bhakti Vinod Thakur said, "Yeah, he hates Sahajiyas." Of course, we don't hate anybody, but he never liked those who were pretense in Krishna and spiritual life. And you'll find today, if you understand things in a broad way, you'll find there's more cheating than reality. Just like there's more paper money than there is jewelry, because paper money is cheap and artificial, and jewelry is, real wealth. So the real stuff is always in the minority, especially in the age of Kali, particularly in the age of Kali. So you see there's so much cheating. Even today, there's so many Babajis and sadhus and this gurus and that gurus promising that you could become God, take some mantras, pay some money, be free from all sins, and you can control the world. Yeah. And so there's so much cheating going on now. It's just the way it is. And that's why these three personalities, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and our Srila Prabhupada really came. Prabhupada's prana mantras, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya De Satarine. He came to destroy Nirvishesha, voidism, Sunyavadi, personalism, Mayavadism, which is everywhere. Prabhupada came to the Western countries to reveal what is real devotion to the Lord, and not just some external show of devotion which centers around worshiping the Lord in order to get some material gain from the Lord so you can live a more happier life in the material world. So we find that it's very much prominent. People worship the Lord for some material benefit. People worship the Lord in order to become the Lord. This is the two biggest cheating facilities in this age of Kali. It's quite rampant. Therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement, established by in the West by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he was the first person to really connect with the Vedic culture in a worldwide way. He also understood in the year I can't remember what year it was, early 1900s, he said, soon a great personality will appear in the world, and he will take the teachings of Lord Chaitanya throughout the world. And that was our Srila Prabhupada. He predicted that. So he could understand, he had a vision. One time he was looking into the area where Lord Chaitanya's birthplace was. And while he was visualizing the birthplace, the whole scene changed, and he saw people from the red race, black race, brown race, yellow race, and white race, all singing and dancing together, singing Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana. and that he could understand in the future all of the races of the world would come together glorifying Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that is happening now with the ISKCON movement established by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. These are some of the pastimes of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. There are so much more. And we could go on for hours and hours describing his life. In the year 1914, Bhakti Vinod Thakur left the planet. In the year 1915, Srila Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj left the planet. Bhakti Siddhanta was feeling quite alone. His guru, both gurus, his father and his spiritual master, within the period of 15 months, left the planet. He felt all alone, trying to fight against all this sahajiyism, all this cheating that was going on. So one night, feeling quite despondent, he went to sleep. And in his dream, the entire Panchatattva appeared to him and said, "We are with you. You simply preach and we are with you." He took heart from that dream, and then he again became enthusiastic. And then I think it was in the year 1918, he wanted to he knew that in order to become an effective preacher, one has to take the renounced order of life. So there was no one at that time to give him the position of sannyas. So he did something unorthodox. He read the principles of sannyas based from the Sri Sampradaya, studied their books, initiated himself into the sannyas order, and gave him his name. He gave himself the name Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. So he was criticized for that, but he understood. You have to understand, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati is not an ordinary person. He came to do this work on behalf of Lord Chaitanya. He came from the spiritual world in order to do this work, to bring back real religious traditions, which has been aborted and perverted throughout the history of this age of Kali. Ever since Krishna left the planet, and when Krishna left the planet, that signified the beginning of the Kali Yuga. And ever since then, Kali has been making his progress in infiltrating the minds and hearts of people with all kinds of bogus philosophies, ideas, cheating, materialism, and various types of immorality in the name of life in the age of Kali. So it's a great fight. These great personalities fought against irreligion. They fought against cheating. And Srila Prabhupada was like that. Sometimes people would say, your spiritual master, he spoke so strongly. Yes, he did, because there is so much artificial religious principles being taught in the name of true religion. So, and even people who are sincere, who want to do the right thing, are also either lured away or unaware of what is true religious principles. True religious principle means to serve the Supreme Personality Godhead for the pleasure of the Lord without any personal motivation. Ayabila Sita Sunya Jnana Karmananavritam Anukulena Krishna Silanam Bhakti Uttamam. Srupa Goswami explains that Bhakti is for Krishna with a desire to please Krishna, without desire for fruit of gain, without desire of philosophical speculation, and in relationship to the Supreme Lord's pleasure. This is the essence. Srila Rupa Goswami has given us the clear understanding what is pure bhakti, and pure bhakti is the nature of the soul. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadbukara Hoy, Shravanadi Siddhi Chitte Koriye Udoy, in the hearts of all living beings, pure love for Krishna is established. It is not something coming from the outside. It is within the heart of all living beings. And to bring that out is the purpose of life. Adatu Brahma Jigyasa, in the human form of life, understand your relationship with the Lord and engage in that relationship. Okay, these are a few things that we can think about. Today is a very wonderful day. It's the appearance of such a great personality who we are so fortunate to be connected to, because by his mercy, he gave us our Srila Prabhupada, who established Krishna consciousness throughout the whole world. That was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's desire. Take the Vedic culture, the Vedic traditions, Lord Chaitanya's teachings throughout the world. He sent his messengers, his disciples to London. He sent them to Burma, which is now Myanmar. He sent them to Germany. Some went to France. Many came back without any real tangible progress. They made some contacts. In London, they made one devotee. But it wasn't until Srila Prabhupada decided to come to New York in 1965 that the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's desire, the Lord's desire, Priti Vidyachi, Nagaradi Gram, that this knowledge be spread throughout the entire world. The only saving grace for the conditioned souls who are struggling in this material world. The only way is to come back to our position as eternal servants of the Lord in loving devotional service. Okay, thank you.
What a great personality appeared and came to give us pure Vaishnava principles, pure religious process, and also gave us Srila Prabhupada, and the rest is history. Such a beautiful delineation of a very, very rare personal associate of the Lord who came down to give us pure devotional service. Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj. So, dear devotees, we just heard such a wonderful narration of the very glorious life of His Divine Grace, our Param Guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. And I'm sure all of you were enchanted by this narration and have many realizations to share or questions to ask. So please feel free. I see Supriya has her hand. Please go ahead, Supriya.
Sorry. That was probably my mistake, but I don't have any questions.
Oh, okay. Would you like to share some realizations?
No, I don't have any realizations.
Okay. So, dear devotees, encouraging you to think of whatever you feel like asking Maharaj. Meanwhile, Maharaj, if you could kindly share with us that letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, asking him how can he serve him, that would be very nice. A little elaboration on that, because that sort of set the tone for the future mission of Prabhupada.
1922, our Srila Prabhupada met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in Calcutta. The place is there, 1 Uttadanga Junction Road. ISKCON has just gotten that place. We purchased it and we are now making it a memorial shrine. But in that first encounter, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told our Srila Prabhupada, you are a very intelligent young man. You should take this message of Lord Chaitanya to the Western world. At that time, Srila Prabhupada, his name was Abhay Charan, he had just graduated college and he was just newly married. He was married for about a year at that time. He was somewhat taken aback by that first meeting. They had never met before, and when the first exchange was that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told him you should make this your life's mission. So he said, well, we are a dependent country. We are dependent, and therefore because Prabhupada was a follower of Gandhi, he refused to. Gandhi was in the idea of non-cooperation. So when Prabhupada was about to graduate from college, he refused to accept his diploma as a protest for the British government. And people were protesting British interventors, British products, British everything. This was Gandhi's movement. And so he said, when he was asked or requested by Bhaktisiddhanta, he said, well, we are dependent nature. First, we need Swaraj. Swaraj means freedom from oppressive rule. Well, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati completely dismissed that idea. He said, this political party, that political party. The message of Lord Chaitanya cannot wait. It is not dependent on the political and social environment. It is the need of the time. So our Prabhupada said later on that I was defeated, and I accepted defeat. And so later on, when he met the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta at Allahabad, where Prabhupada had his pharmacy at that time, he started to associate, and gradually he started to come in contact in a more regular way with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's movement through his disciples. And it was in 1936, just before Bhaktisiddhanta left, that Bhaktisiddhanta again met with Srila Prabhupada and told him personally, if you ever get money, print books. This message of Lord Chaitanya is the message that needs to be spread, and therefore printing books. He called it the Brihat Mridanga. He said, when you play the mridanga, you can hear it within a certain range, but the Brihat Mridanga is the printing press, that making books that can go anywhere and everywhere. We see that our books have gone throughout the world in different places. There was one particular Bhagavad Gita that was snuck into Russia by Malati Devi and Sham Sundar, that began the whole revolution in Russia, which now is the biggest yatra outside of India. There are tens and thousands of devotees who are in Russia who are actually practicing devotees. And so the Bhaktisiddhanta gave that. He said, if you ever get money, print books. And then just before Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left the planet, our Srila Prabhupada, in the beginning of December of 1936, he wrote him a letter. And again, he requested him, how can I serve you? And again, he gave the same response, that go to the Western world and preach Krishna consciousness. So he received that message at least 2 or 3 times, and that made the emphasis. And Prabhupada was thinking, now, how can I do it? Of course, many years after that, he spent from the 1936, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left the planet at 5:30 a.m. on January 1st of 1937. He entered into his Nitya Lila and went back to the spiritual world. And then from 37, our Prabhupada continued to try to preach Krishna consciousness in India. But he had, things would get going and then things would change, and he couldn't really establish anything. And then he thought, well, I guess it's time for me to go to the West. And after spending 5 years in Vrindavan, translating the Srimad Bhagavatam first canto and writing he also wrote other books. He made his trip to America. And so it's a great history. Satyarup Maharaj has written, the life of Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada also talks about, if you listen to Prabhupada's tape lecture, he also talks about his own life as he was living when he met his spiritual master, after he met his spiritual master, after Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left, how he tried to preach in India, how Krishna took everything away from him, his family, his position as a big pharmaceutical leader within the entire Indian continent. He got some of the best offers from the top chemical companies in India to be, with a very high salary. But he refused everything and ultimately came to the West with only $7 to start the Hare Krishna movement. So taking the orders of the spiritual master as one's life and soul and focusing that completely, then Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Ta Devi Tata Guru Tasyaita Kartata Tyata Prakasanati Mahatmanaha. The one who has complete faith in the instructions of Krishna and Guru, all the imports of all Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed within the heart. This is a very powerful understanding of how one becomes effective in Krishna consciousness, that they absorb themselves in the instructions of their spiritual master and makes that their life and soul. And then they become empowered to do wonderful things, make progress in their own spiritual life, and also preach Krishna consciousness. So that's a little bit about the letter. That letter was the enunciation of what he had said previously.
Beautiful, beautiful. So wonderful to hear this nectar. Thank you, Maharaj. So dear devotees, would you like to share some realizations about this wonderful personality who gave us Srila Prabhupada and has given us ISKCON? Does anybody want to share anything? This is just nectar. We churn the nectar now. So when devotees are thinking, Maharaj, there's just a simple sort of a little technical question, I would say. Kalakanti Mataji, Kalakanti Radhika, somehow or the other misseeing that it is fasting for half a day for Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj's appearance. And unfortunately, she took some maha sweets or fruits or something, and then she saw the message. So she's feeling very bad and she's asking what she should do. Should she do the half-day fast tomorrow and beg forgiveness for her mistake?
No, not necessarily. If she took maha fruit, that she didn't, in one sense, she didn't break the fast.
Okay. So hope that answer satisfies you, Kalakanti. Please don't feel bad and no need to feel guilty.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. I will eventually. Thank you.
Of course,
so
we
much.
try to make a complete fast, but if we somehow inadvertently take maha doesn't break the fast.
Oh, thank you so much.
Maha fruit.
Yeah, I already put some and then I saw the message because I was not so well yesterday and I felt
Nice.
really guilty. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Arti.
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
What is the program for the South Indian Temple in March? What are the dates of that again?
25th and 26th March.
25th and 26th March. Okay. Yeah.
You'll be here for both days?
I'm trying.
Yes.
Okay, just 25 and 26. Okay, thank you.
We've got you down for class on the Sunday, if that's okay with you.
The 26th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Maharaj, if I may ask one more question. Because of the very strong, powerful personality of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, his purity and the fact that he's from the personal entourage of the Lord, he spoke very compellingly, very forcefully, very clearly, and did not tolerate any nonsense, was very cutting. He was known as Lion Guru, Simha Guru. But we who are small conditioned souls, we are very fallen, we are prone to making so many mistakes. We are just conditioned. If we try to speak forcefully, clearly and all, could we come across as fanatical and irritating to others?
We can. Yeah, Prabhupada said, when people would try to imitate Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, I can speak like this, but you may not. But what he was saying is that take his words and present it in a way that people can understand. Yet the acharyas have to establish the principles in a very clear and determined way. They do that mostly for their followers, so the followers don't get, waylaid by, what they call it, sentimental, the tendency to sentimentalize religious principles. So the acharyas, because they're pure in the sense that they have no personal motivation, and because they represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they speak very strongly. But you have to understand their motivation is for the benefits of others. Unless we are actually on that platform, to try to imitate that can look like pretense, can look like an expression of our own false ego. So, Satya Priyam, Satya Bruyam, speak the truth in a pleasing way. Don't compromise truth in order to become pleasing. And don't become pleasing and just eliminate the truth. You have to be able to blend those two together. But when a spiritual master speaks to his disciples, he can speak very strongly because he wants to give them a clear understanding of what is the actual principles of pure devotional service. Because it's very, very, there are 81 ways to create mixed devotional service. There's only one pure devotional service. Yeah, and there's the nine processes of bhakti, the 9 angas, and then you have the 3 modes of material nature. 9 times 3 is 27, 27 times 3 is 81. 81 impure ways of bhakti or mixed bhakti. That's from Srimad Bhagavatam. We studied that verse by Rupa Goswami. Avyabhila Sita Sunyam Jnana Karmana Navritam Anukulena Krishna Silanam Bhakti Uttamam. That is in the preface of Nectar Devotion. It's written there. And Prabhupada explains that verse in his lectures also. So by Pum Dhammo Yado Bhakti Ahoksa Jaya Hoituki Priyataya Atma Supersedati. When Sutta Goswami was asked, what is the first question was, what is the goal of devotional service? What is devotional service? What is pure devotional service? Sutta Goswami quoted that verse, first canto, 2nd chapter, verse number 6. That devotional service has to be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. When it's interrupted and It can be interrupted by material things. If it's motivated by something, then it's mixed devotional service. It's not pure karma, gyan, yoga, all these things. It's a great science. Read the Bhagavatam, especially the first canto, second chapter. Read that chapter, study that chapter completely. If you study that second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, you'll get a real clear understanding of what is bhakti. Because the whole Bhagavatam is based on 6 questions given by the sages in Nambisaranya to Sutta Goswami. Those 6 questions establish the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam. All the questions are in the first chapter of Bhagavatam, first canto. The answers are in the second chapter, some of them are in the third chapter, like that.
Yes, Maharaj. I've noted down all the important points.
Yeah, those 6 questions established the answers to the essence of pure devotional service.
Thank you. So Maharaj, I have one more question on Vani and Vapu, but we'll take one from Namrata, who writes who's asking a question, humbly asking a question of Your Holiness. She says, Hare Krishna, can you suggest some books to learn that art of speaking in a way that conveys the message and yet doesn't hurt anyone?
Well, that's an art, and it can be learned. Even the non-devotees have broached this subject many times from different points of view. How speech can be used in such a way as to attract the attention of others. It should be pleasing. It should be with meaning. I mean, there's so many books on a material level, but Prabhupada mentions that this comes by way of one's spiritual advancement. As one makes advancement in spiritual life, they develop these qualities. It's learned by the process of bhakti. Thoughtfulness is one of the essential qualities of speech. One should be thoughtful in presenting what they know. Thoughtful. That's there are also discussions on how to give a Bhagavatam class. Yeah, there is a, I think Anuttama Prabhu, he gives a class on effective communications. Yeah, come to the ILS. It starts tomorrow here in Mayapur. There'll be, I think I don't know how many different presentations available, but they're going to cover many subject matters. What is ILS? ISKCON Leadership Sangha. It's a 4-day program, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th, I think, 4 days, Sridevi, I think. Yeah, and then there are seminars throughout the whole day going on simultaneously. And then there's 42 different booths that will be selling different books, paraphernalia, and various other spiritual things. It's a great time. These 4 days will be, and the prasadam will be outstanding. You can sign up. I think there's I think the whole thing is free. Yeah. It's being subsidized by donors. And so everything about the whole thing is free. You just come sign up for different classes and you can go to whatever subject matter attracts you.
No, Maharaj, it's not free, but very nominal sum of money. It's just $11 or 880 rupees.
Oh yeah, 80 rupees, right?
880 rupees.
800 rupees, yeah. Okay.
880. That's what they wrote.
800,
880. Yeah.
which is $11. I mean, which is nothing.
And we are going to have Maharaj's books there, Natural Living, and we're going to have Bhakti Milk. So on the table will be 2 very valuable books, and you are all welcome to come.
I received the book today.
Haribol! I'm looking forward, Guru Maharaj, to seeing the book, reading the book, studying the book, talking about the book, applying the book, living the book. Haribol!
Namrata, are you here? You want to see your cover, which you designed? I can show it to you.
Namrata is here, Maharaj.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. I'm just trying to on my camera. Just give me a minute.
I'm gonna go get the book.
Yeah. Okay.
Namrata's artwork ki jai. Haribol.
So Namrata designed the front and back cover, and I'll turn on my video. And this is the cover here. You can see the book. I don't know if you know, it says Krishna's Way, Natural Living, and that little circle with Krishna and the cows, that was done by Namrata. Can you see it? Now here's the back.
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
There's Prabhupada on the back. She also did the back cover. Beautiful artwork.
It's looking really beautiful, Guru Maharaj. I think I wish all the best for the success of the book, Guru Maharaj.
Good, yeah. We made a circle out of your painting. You like this?
Wow. So beautiful. So beautiful.
The background is more like leaves and other things like that.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. But it's looking very nice. It's looking nice.
So we're in booth number 28. So that's where the books will be there. There's 42 booths. So we're booth 28. Anyone? So hop on a plane, Namrata, and come up to Calcutta, and then
And come and stay with me.
yeah, you have a place to stay already.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, I would love to. There's a lot of things going on there. ILS is also there. I want to, but my son's final exams are there. I have to stay here.
Shravanam Utsava, what is it? Shravanam Utsava? That's also right after the ILS. That's 4 days.
Shravan Utsav.
That's 4 days of seminars on different topics by different sannyasis throughout the whole day. That's from the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. On the 17th is a 5-day Kirtan Mela, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20, and 21. Right after that starts the Navadvip Mandala Parikram.
And back to back, many wonderful events, wonderful programs. Yeah.
The river
Something-
of nectar. Namrata, come and jump in.
People have come from all over the world. The place is full of Vaishnavas.
I'll keep it in my plans next year, Guru Maharaj.
No, this year. Next
Can your
year,
son give the exam online?
No, they're very young to give online.
Oh,
Supriya, do you have a question?
Maharaj, I was curious about your journey when you met Prabhupada. So, can you just tell us your journey into ISKCON and
Well, that's another class. That's, I think it's a little bit late to start discussing my, but
Yeah.
I'll talk about it some other time. It's not something, I think I'm going to stick on Bhakti Siddhanta right
I
now.
was just wondering, you were in US and how you got attracted to this ISKCON philosophy. I mean, I think you must have gone through Bible, and people there in US, they are more attracted to studying Bible than studying ISKCON philosophy. So
I'm writing about that, and I also wrote a little bit of the history, so that may be something that comes out later on. Yeah.
may I ask a very quick question on Vani and Bapu? Because when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj left, all his sannyasi disciples and people in the mutt were there, but Prabhupada was not there. But yet he took the words of his Guru Maharaj so seriously and carried out his mission. So could you speak a little bit about Vani and Bapu?
Well, Vani is the words of the spiritual master, which is the connecting force between the disciple and the guru, and the disciple and Krishna. The instructions of the spiritual master are the lifeline of the devotee. He connects with those instructions, learns how to execute them, and executes them in the way to please the spiritual master, to please Krishna. So that is Vani. Vani means instructions. Vapu means personal association. Vapu is time and circumstance. Vani is eternal. The personal association will not always be there, but what one may learn in the association of the spiritual master may be taken to heart, and that way one can practice Vani with more determination because of the experience one has with the personal association. So personal association can support Vani, but Vani is superior. There are many who have not had personal association, who live by the instructions and who have made tremendous progress towards the goal simply by following the instructions. Because spiritual life is not based on time, place, and circumstance. It's an eternal principle that is based on the instructions of Krishna coming through the form of his spiritual master. But Vani is also can work in a negative way too, that if one is in the association of the spiritual master, they may also commit offense, or they also may minimize that association. So Vani is a double edge. I mean, Vapu is a double edge. whereas Vani is always pure. Prabhupada taught that in his own life when he came to Calcutta one time, and he didn't go to the place of his spiritual master. And his godbrothers criticized him in an indirect way, and that criticism came back to Prabhupada. They said, well, he came. He didn't even go to see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's place. Prabhupada said, don't they understand? I'm always with my spiritual master. I'm always trying to carry out his instructions. Therefore, there is no break in that relationship.
So important to understand this thoroughly, Maharaj, because sometimes we may long for personal association and we may not get that personal association for whatever reason, but keeping the instructions of the spiritual master foremost is the real connection.
Right. Is the connection that is eternal.
Right, right. Thank you. So we have reached 7 o'clock in the evening here in India. I believe Guru Maharaj has a kirtan coming up in the temple today. Guru Maharaj, you are going to be leading the kirtan in the Panchatattva hall today evening, I'm told. Is that correct?
Nobody told me that.
Oh, maybe I misunderstood then. Because one lady said that there's going to be kirtan from 7 to 8:30 and your Guru Maharaj will be there. I mean, she didn't say you will lead, but I just made that assumption. I think I was wrong. But are you coming for kirtan?
Tomorrow in Telangidam at 4:30, there's a kirtan program. I'll be chanting at 4:30 to 5.
Okay, okay. Yes, I heard about that too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The Mayapuris will be there chanting from 6:30 to 8:30.
Thank you for that update, Maharaj. And everyone is welcome to join. It will be live streamed. If you cannot be in person, you can watch it live stream. Oh, Raj Prabhu has raised his hand. Please go ahead, Raj Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, you're talking about the power of following the spiritual master's instructions. If one is attempting to follow the instructions on a daily basis, how does one know if they are following correctly?
Well, if you know, then that's fine. If you don't know, just ask.
Okay, Maharaj, thank you.
Yeah, just ask and explain your situation. And so, you have any doubt about whether you're following or not?
Well, I'm attempting to follow as much as I can every day, but I realize that I have so many faults, so many weaknesses, so many bad qualities that I may not even realize that I'm doing things incorrectly. Because, like, for example, if I'm reading from the same verses from the Bhagavatam so many times, but I still feel that it's still a mystery to me.
Well, it doesn't mean it'll stay a mystery. You just keep reading it over and over again. You'll get something more each time you read. That is the way of learning, is repetition of the same points. That's why if you carefully observe how Bhagavatam is presented, you'll see the essential principles of the philosophy of the practice is all in the first canto, complete. And the purports throughout the rest of the Bhagavatam really enunciate and explain those same principles from different angles of vision, along with the different leelas that accompany the different cantos. So, yeah, repetition.
Okay, Maharaj, I'll keep going. Thank you.
And ask questions if you don't understand us.
It's not so much that I don't understand. I follow the words. It's just that I feel that I haven't tapped into it properly. I feel that there's like, I'm only skimming the surface and there's a whole ocean in every verse.
Yeah, just think, how does this relate to me? What is this verse saying? How can I understand it? How can I apply it in my life? Ask these questions while you're reading.
Thank you, Maharaj. I'll try that.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So
Maharaj,
Sri
you have time for one last quick question. Srimati has her hand raised.
okay.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Guru Maharaj, I was listening. Thank you for the wonderful class. So we celebrated Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance day yesterday in temple and in Bhakti Riksha too. Thank you so much. And also, as I'm listening to your schedule and a lot of programs in Mayapur, my question is, will you be able to give class for all of us this week?
Well, tomorrow I'm planning to give class.
Okay.
There is one day during the Shravanam Utsavam, Shravanam Utsava, where I have to give a talk at the same time as this. I think that's the last day, 13th, 14th. I think that's on the 16th that I'm scheduled to speak at 5:30 in the evening. So, yeah. I think all the other days are okay.
Okay.
If something comes up, and Mayapur is like that, things pop up just all of a sudden. Like I was invited to a wedding tomorrow. I'm just riding on, going to the temple. I stop, get off the bike, and some girl goes up and says, Maharaj, we want you to come to my wedding tomorrow. It's like, what can you do? There's like hundreds of events going on individual basis. Different gurus, different seminars, programs, marriages, weddings. It's like an ocean of choice here. So yeah, so right now, as it stands now, the 16th, I don't think I'll be able to do a class. But before then, I should be okay.
I think 16th is a Thursday, Guru Maharaj. I have to inform Shamagori Mataji about that.
Yeah, I can't get out of that. If I get out of it, that means I have to give the whole program. I have to see. Let me see here. Let's see. Let me see what days this is. Okay, so 13th, 14th, 15th. No, it's on the 15th.
Okay,
Wednesday.
ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah, the 16th, I'm good.
Okay.
The 16th, I have to be at 7 p.m. So I can only give a quick class on the 16th. Because their class starts at 5:50. And I have to be in another place before 7. So I think I can only give a half-hour class that day, and then I have to leave.
Okay.
That's the 15th. I won't be able to do the program.
Okay, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, on this wonderful appearance day, we just want to take the opportunity to thank you for presenting the pure message as it is given by the great devotees, the great spiritual masters to us. Thank you for being a pure representative of Srila Prabhupada and coming to save us. My heartfelt obeisances again and again forever.
Thank you very, very much for today.
Glory to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you very much for today. Hare Guru, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Guru Maharaj, thank you very much.
Hare.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.